Aloha.
So Stephen Ueda is responsible for me being in front of you this evening. And I understand I'm a side dish, not the main dish, so Mike, you will have primary responsibility behind the mic here. But I do want to share a few things. And you will soon find out why I really do not like to do public speaking. But Steve called and asked me to join you this evening. And I was gratified and happy to do it for lots of different reasons. Namely, Hilo is a special place. And you folks are 3.3% of the population. But from a business standpoint, you really punch above your weight. Some of the real leader businesses in this community, global businesses, and just leaders within the respective communities reside right here in Hilo. And it's always fun to come to this town, just talk shop, talk business. You folks really know how to get things done, and it's really an inspiration coming from Honolulu to be out here this evening with you all. JA is an organization that I have long-standing deep roots with, so I was a member of JA as a senior in high school, making plexiglass clipboards, which I'm proud to say we sold out of. And so I'm a huge believer in the product. I'm a huge believer in the service and what it does. And I'll share with you a little bit why I think JA and organizations like JA are so important. And finally, our honoree this evening, Mike Miyahira. How could I say no to that? Because Mike is an alumnus, but I gotta tell you, Mike, I'm a little disappointed by the descriptor here, because Mike spent 24 years at, where is it? 24 years with one of Hawaii's largest commercial banks on the islands of Oahu, Maui, and Hawaii. It's called Bank of Hawaii. We're here to honor you, and well deserved. I'll just take a few minutes just to share with you my perspective on why I think JA is so critical and important to not only Hilo and Hawaii, but I think where we are from a national standpoint. And to go back to maybe start with kind of how things are happening globally. You've all heard the phrase, may you live in interesting times. It's kind of an overused proverb. I Googled it yesterday, and it is not a Chinese proverb. That is a myth. It was actually propagated by RFK Jr. in 1966, and the kind of the punchline of it all is to say may you live in interesting times really means to may you live in really difficult, janky, crazy times. And I think that where we are right now is somewhat representative of that. When we kind of do a circle around the world, Europe is at war, Ukraine and Russia, economy not doing that great. Asia is an interesting place because China, who was the poster child, well, let's start with Japan, who was the poster child of the 80s, continues to have its struggles and things seem to be getting better, but it's still a difficult economic environment. China, who was the most recent poster child of the world, now all of a sudden is dealing with its one-child policy, and things seem to be winding backwards there. And so there's an economic challenge, and there's a security challenge as well. So the prospect of war in China and in the region is real. And so as crazy as things feel here in the United States, we're kind of like the tallest dwarf, right? And so the United States is doing okay economically, kind of feels worse than that. When we look at the statistics, we're doing pretty well. I think socially, that's where the real challenge exists. And it feels to me, and I think to many, like things have never felt more segregated and separated. And that's largely, we feel, because things are segregated and separated. And so political divide has never been greater, social divide has never been greater. And when you get down, kind of inspect what's the root cause, is technology and social media. And these are mediums for which we really have no effective foil against, because so much of our policy is driven in the industrialized world, and now we live in the knowledge economy, right? And so to bring it to Honolulu, Hawaii feels unusual right now economically. So on the one hand, we have 2.9% unemployment, which we should actually be rejoicing around, because the country's running at 4.3% unemployment. But when you look at where we've been to where we are now, pre-pandemic to today, the country, the United States, has grown at about 10%. So the US is 10% better off than it was pre-pandemic. Bring it back to the islands, we're still down 2%. So just think about that for a second. Jobs seem to be okay. The economy is not gaining traction. What is going on there? And I think maybe it's time for us to face somewhat of an inconvenient truth, and that is we need to start thinking about how do we broaden out our economy here in the islands. We relied on tourism and visitors, which is a fantastic industry for an awful long time. The military has been a presence for an awful long time. The real question is what comes next? And to think through what possibly comes next, I think we think about where have we been? And it may feel like kind of an unnerving, strange, not such a great place to be, not knowing where our next economic opportunity exists. But the reality is, in the history of our islands, we've faced this many times, right? So, sandalwood in the early 1800s, and I know that's a sad tale, but that's kind of where the economy was back then. Whaling, sugar, military, then the visitor industry in 1959, and the commonality to all of those opportunities is that we didn't invent any of them, right? We were simply in the slipstream of opportunity as those phenomena became important to different parts of the world. So whaling was about New England schooners going to the Sea of Japan to find whales, and Hawaii just simply was in the middle of that. Sugar there was a civil war, so our sugar industry became advantaged because the country was not going into the deep south to get sugar anymore, right? In the slipstream of opportunity. The visitor industry was minuscule until the advent of the jet engine, which allowed people to come to the islands in the numbers that come today. So I think the important thing to think about here is we don't drive our opportunity, we respond to opportunities in the world as they appear. And I think one of the interesting things about where we are right now is that we are transitioning out of the manufacturing economy world. Like the Industrial Revolution was a long time ago. We're now in the knowledge economy. And whereas before we never would be able to compete from a scale standpoint globally, I think when we think about what we can achieve as a community within the knowledge economy, I think there's opportunity there. Because increasingly, people can be wherever they want to be to do business, and people want to be in Hawaii. It's not just the sun, sand, and surf, it's the fact that people feel safe in the islands. It's the fact that people like the community of the islands. And I think that's a huge opportunity. I think it's an even bigger opportunity for the Big Island and for Hilo in particular to think forward, where will people wish to be and how does commerce get done? It gets done with people, it gets done with knowledge, it gets done with technology. And I think Hawaii sets up really well to that. Now, junior achievement, how does that fit in? Well, in order for us to take advantage of that opportunity, we have to arm our kids with knowledge and skills and understanding how business gets done. And I can think of no better example than JA as a platform among many platforms to help our Keiki get there. We likely are going to run shy on opportunity on traditional economic drivers that we've come to know and love and rely on. Things will change. I think the knowledge economy is that, but we have to get our kids, our Keiki, prepared for that. And so JA, with last year, 6,800 kids statewide served across 54 schools, 12 of which were right here on the Big Island, serving 33,000 contact hours. Whatever contact hours, I'm not sure, but that sounds like a lot of hours, right? And most importantly, 171 volunteers supporting and giving their time and effort, adults to kids, to get these kids prepared. And so, thank you, Mike, for all that you've done in the community. Thank you for representing a great organization in junior achievement. Thank you to this community for really, I think, being a real example of what communities can be. And like I said, you're 3% of the population, but from a business and commerce standpoint, you've always kind of punched way above your weight. I wish that we could help take this example and broaden it to the broader community. And your effort and your concentration and your support of JA is absolutely critical to the prosperity of this community and our broader community. So Mike, congratulations. Thank you.